And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Good evening, San Diego. Welcome to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis. I am a top producing real estate broker, a licensed California attorney, and a NMLS licensed mortgage broker. I truly am San Diego's real estate expert. I am here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. to discuss anything and everything related to San Diego real estate. As always, I welcome any questions or issues that you would like to hear me discuss on the show. There are several ways that you can contact me. First, you can call me at 888-242-2272. That's 888-242-2272. You can also email me at michael@michaelgaddis.com, or you can visit my website at michaelgaddis.com. No one likes to think about dying. However, the reality is that all of us will one day pass away. The American Bar Association estimates that 55% of Americans die without a will or some sort of estate plan. 55%. When you think about it, that is a staggering percentage. What causes this lack of planning? Is it procrastination? Is it denial about mortality? Or is it a general lack of caring about what will happen? Whatever the reason for the lack of planning, the estates of these 55% of Americans will now be left up to state law. The state laws may or may not reflect how these Americans would have actually wanted their estate to be distributed. However, since they did not take the time to provide an outline of their wishes, they and their families are at the mercy of the legislature. As a real estate professional, I frequently list homes that are either being sold by a trustee or being sold through probate. Since I do assist in the sales of these types of properties, I thought it would be interesting to invite two attorneys that specialize in handling estate planning and probate issues into the studio to discuss the importance of estate planning and to talk about what happens when someone passes away without a blueprint for disposing of their estate. My in-studio guests today are two of the top estate planning attorneys in San Diego. My first guest is Amy Hsiao, pronounced Hsiao, of hsiaolaw.com. That's HSIAO law.com. Amy has a very unique approach to estate planning. Different from traditional law firms, she takes a proactive approach and provides personal care and quality services. She asserts that she will become your personal lawyer for life. She received an excellent rating by her clients on Avvo and was recently designated your family business lawyer by the National Family Wealth Planning Institute, a national organization for estate planning professionals in pursuit of practice excellence. Amy is a leader in multiple bar organizations, and the San Diego Daily Transcript nominated her as one of the top young attorneys in 2014. Amy is also a frequent speaker on various estate planning topics. Amy, thank you for joining me today. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in estate planning.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for having me today. So I got involved in estate planning because actually one of my friends' grandmother passed away. And when she passed away, back then she didn't have a trust plan. When she passed, my friend had to go through probate, and it was hell for her. And she had to spend so much time and money in court. And I thought, well, what can I do as an attorney to help in the community? And I decided to do estate planning, and it's been the most fulfilling career that I've had.
Well, thank you, Amy. We are also joined by Paul V.L. Campo, attorney at law of attorneypaulcampo.com. Paul Campo is a graduate of Stanford University and the UCLA School of Law. Paul is a native of San Diego's North County and maintains his office there. He has over 30 years' experience in estate planning, probate, conservatorships, trust administration, and trust and probate litigation. Paul is committed to providing personalized, knowledgeable, and efficient legal representation for his clients. He believes strongly that each of his clients is unique and has unique needs. Paul's estate planning services are designed to protect his clients' assets in life and after death, and to provide his clients and their families with peace of mind. Paul is committed to helping his clients preserve their family's wealth, as well as helping to create the appropriate directive for medical care and establishing guardianships to protect his clients' minor children. Paul Campo previously served on the Vista City Council and is currently an elected board member of the Tri-City Healthcare District. Paul, thank you for joining me today. Tell us how you chose estate planning as your dedicated field of practice.
Well, thank you, Michael. I grew up in Vista, and I had a lot of friends, still do, who over the years seem to need a little help with wills and trusts and the related estate planning documents. And I found it a lot more interesting than some of the other practice areas. So I began slowly focusing on that, and that is 100% of my practice and has been for over 20 years.
Wow. I'm going to be honest with you guys. When I was in law school, I took a class on estate planning. However, I did not realize until I was prepping for this show how involved estate planning really is. I mean, it is a very, very involved topic. So I think what I'd like to start with, and I'll start with this with Amy, what exactly is an estate? What is estate planning, and what is an estate?
Exactly. That's a really good question. So a lot of times people think, well, I don't have an estate. I don't need estate planning. But in reality, your estate includes everything that you own, not just your bank account, what your savings are, your checking accounts, but also your house, and also your brokerage account, your insurance proceeds. All of these, can go into, will be considered your estate. And so a lot of people think that they have no estate, but actually when we sit down and go through their assets, they actually have an estate that they have to set up a plan to protect, to avoid going to probate.
Wow. Well, Paul, let me ask you a question. You heard the statistics earlier that 55% of Americans die without any type of planning whatsoever. How do you feel about that number?
Well, I'd say that's a little low. I have found over the years that the procrastination is the real issue. Some of my clients are more my age, in their late 50s, and they just don't want to face the fact it takes work. They think it's something I'll do tomorrow, and sometimes when tomorrow comes, they're not prepared. And that's the real sadness, isn't it? Because the state of California will decide where those assets go, and individuals will not. And that's something that we should not let happen.
Well, Paul, let me ask you one more question. I hear a lot of people talk about wills. They talk about trusts. What's the difference between a will and a trust?
Well, for those of us that remember the old Perry Mason days, he'd whip up a will and then he'd defend a murderer in a criminal case. A will is the traditional way to pass property. It's court supervised, it is lengthy, and in California, the fees paid to the executor are pretty steep. For example, on a $500,000 house, we're looking at something like $13,000, which is a lot of money. $13,000, I'll say it again. And trusts allow us to pass property privately, which means that people's prying eyes are not pouring through court records. And it allows us to leave our money as we want to, not as the state of California tells us we're going to leave it.
Well, Amy, let me ask you, what do you say to people who say, well, I have a will, I don't need a trust? Is that true?
That's definitely not true. Well, maybe a better answer would be it depends. So if they have assets more than $150,000, and if they only have a will, then they have to go through the probate process. In other words, anything above $150,000, they have to pay a fee for going to court, for hiring an attorney, and it's very time consuming, and it's also very costly. The probate process can take up to 12 to 18 months, and 12 is relatively quick, especially, with the court budget cut. Now it's really hard to get on the court calendar, so easily you have to wait 18 months, during which time your assets are completely frozen. So imagine when your family, just lost a member and you're so distressed. You are, trying to pay for things, but you still have to go to court. And every time when you go to court, you have to pay a fee. And imagine if those people who have relatives out of state, out of country even, they have to actually come to San Diego, come here, go to court, pay for the hotel fees, pay for the, airplane fees. It's just horrible.
Well, Paul, this is for you. what about, what are the parts of a trust? What is involved in a trust itself?
The trust is not a complicated idea. The people that transfer the money in, they have a couple of names, trustor, sometimes settlor, or grantor. They're transferring money to themselves as trustees, and they are also the primary beneficiaries. So if you think about it, we're doing this for those reasons I said earlier. We're creating a document that allows people to decide who is going to get their property when they're gone. So let's talk about a beneficiary. If mom and dad are the ones that create the trust and are the trustees and the current beneficiaries, when the last one, either dad or mom, has died, then it probably is going to the children. If there are no children, it might go to charities and that sort of thing. Those folks are known as the contingent beneficiaries, the ones who take after mom and dad are gone.
Well, when we get back from break, we'll continue our discussion on estate planning with Amy Shao of ShaoLaw.com. That's HSIAO Law.com. And Paul Campo of AttorneyPaulCampo.com. You are listening to The Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.
If you've got questions, we've got answers. AM 1170, The Answer.
Hey, Craig Sewing here, consumer activist. You hear me every day at 6 p.m. on KCBQ. My goal is to help you win in any marketplace. One of the things that applies to every single person that listens to our show and that's listening right now, you have a credit score, and more likely than not, it has inaccuracies on it. Nobody seems to understand how these things work. Here's what I can tell you. I have a credit expert that's a partner in the show named Iran Sinai. I call him the credit magician. If you've ever had any issues with your credit, you want to get your scores up, maybe a foreclosure, bankruptcy, or maybe just a collection. You know, the city of San Diego can send parking tickets to collections. Crazy. Well, bad credit's a choice. Reach out to Iran Sinai. How do you do that? You go to our website, AmericanDreamElite.com. AmericanDreamElite.com. Hit me up on the contact form. I'll connect you with Iran. AmericanDreamElite.com. If you've ever had any credit issues whatsoever, AmericanDreamElite.com.
Who would you rather have representing you when buying or selling your home? A real estate agent or a real estate and mortgage broker who is also a licensed California attorney? To sell your home for top dollar, or if you're facing a forced sale due to divorce, probate, short sale, or bankruptcy, you'll need the added value and marketing services of a realtor with the knowledge and experience of a licensed attorney and mortgage broker on your side.
Hi, I'm Michael Gaddis. I give you more, but it doesn't cost you more.
Visit MichaelGaddis.com. That's Michael, Gaddis.com. DRE 0146543 and MLS 28001.
Hi, this is AJ Gupta from the Gupta Legal Center. You've probably seen us on the American Dream TV show and the Craig Sewing radio show. We're honored to be featured as the exclusive real estate attorney and honored to be trusted by Craig and all of his top producing realtors. Our office was also featured as a super lawyer representing California's top 5% of attorneys. You may not know whether you need an attorney or not. My suggestion is you kind of have an idea whether there's a problem or a question. So I suggest if you don't know whether you need an attorney or not, give us a call. We're happy to pick up the phone, give you a call back, figure out what it is that you need to have addressed. If we can't or don't know the issue, then we can definitely point you in the right direction. Our phone number is 619-866-3444. That's 619-866-3444, and that's GuptaLC.com. GUPTALC.com.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of MichaelGaddis.com. I am a top producing real estate broker serving all of San Diego County. We're going to continue our discussion now on estate planning with Amy Shao of ShaoLaw.com. That's HSIAO Law.com, and Paul Campo of AttorneyPaulCampo.com. So before the break, we were kind of talking a little bit about, what is a trust and what consists of a trust. But let me ask you a question. When should people begin thinking about, putting something into a will or a trust? Amy?
Well, the sooner the better. I would say if you have any loved ones that you care about, that you don't want to leave a mess to them, then you should probably at least have a will. And if you have assets more than $150,000, you should definitely think about having a trust. And also when you have children, if you have minor kids, you should definitely think about creating a trust or even guardianship. Because one thing that a lot of people forget is when they have children and they want to leave their inheritance for their kids who are under 18. Now, if something were to happen to them and their kids receive this asset before they turn 18, these assets have to go to court. It has to go to a guardianship, probate guardianship. And, it's just hell for the family.
Well, you bring up a point that I think that a lot of people don't realize, that estate planning has to do with tax preparation as well. Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the ramifications of not planning properly for your estate?
Well, one of the worst things that's going to happen is your money's not going to go where you want it to necessarily. If you have charitable intent, you're not going to get a dime going to the Salvation Army or your favorite pastor or any other group that is of interest to you. You're also not going to get money going to people other than your immediate family. The tax savings with a trust are not as great as they used to be, but there's still ways to plan. If you have second marriages, for example, children from the first marriage, a little skeptical about the new mommy or daddy, and we want to make sure that everybody gets his or her fair share. And that's one of the things that we focus on is fairness, where you want your money to go.
Amy, what happened? Oh, yes, Amy, go ahead.
I actually want to add to Paul's point regarding tax. Now, in right now, the estate tax exemption amount for U.S. citizens is only $5.43 million, which is a really high amount, and a lot of people don't have to worry about it. Now, I do want to mention that I have some clients who are international. So for international people, if they have any assets in the United States, their estate tax exemption amount is only $60,000. So imagine if they own a house, and that house could easily be like more than $500,000. They bought the house thinking that they want to leave their kids who are U.S. citizens, the house for them to pay rent or go to school, not knowing that if something were to happen to them, anything above $60,000 has to be taxed 40%.
Wow, that's pretty staggering when you really think about it.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you, Paul, a question for you.
Sure.
What happens if, let's say I'm married and I'm really interested in putting together a will or doing some estate planning, and let's say my significant other is resistant to it for whatever reason? I mean, what advice would you give to people in that situation?
Probably I'd say, what kind of a relationship do you have with your spouse? Are we looking at keeping all the assets separate? Is there no community property? That is, property arising from the marriage. But let's just say you're a typical family, and maybe the dad or the mom is a little more on the ball and the other spouse is hesitant. You'd want to talk about the kids, if there are any. You'd want to talk about your goals. You'd also want to talk about managing property during incapacity, because statistically, you're more likely to need someone to manage your property between the ages of 40 and 75 than people realize. So who is going to take care of that? Let's say first spouse has died and spouse number 2 is in the proverbial car accident. Well, you're probably going to need a successor trustee to manage that property. And you should be the one to pick that person, because I can tell you the courts will appoint a conservator who may or may not be that person that you want.
Well, let's do a follow-up to that. What age do you think, if someone's setting up an estate and they have minor children, at what age do you usually recommend that people turn over the assets out of a trust to those children? Is it young or old?
Well, I have to talk to the individuals. I will tell you, though, in my practice experience, when a child reaches 18, he or she is considered a legal adult. I have yet to find an 18-year-old who can manage a 6-figure plus estate. It usually ends up being spent on Porsches, recreational products, vacations to places that have a little more liberal view of lifestyle, that sort of thing. I like to tell people, if they want my opinion, the mid-20s, and some folks want to go to 30 or 35, which I think can be excessive.
Well, it's very interesting. And the reason I asked that question is because I had someone in my office yesterday that was coming to me to sell a property, and they were the trustee of a trust. And they said that the beneficiary had turned 25 years old, and according to the terms of the trust, they were supposed to turn over the assets to the beneficiary at age 25. The beneficiary was her niece. And when she told her niece that it was time to turn over the assets, her niece says, "I'm not ready for this. That's too much responsibility. I can't take it." And her response was, "Well, that's what the trust says I have to do." And she says, "I'm not ready for this yet." So, it's interesting that people have different ages as to which, they think they're kind of ready for that type of responsibility. Yes, Amy?
And I just like to add to that, a lot of the times, the parents think, okay, when the kids reach 25 or whatever age it is, or 30 or 18, I'm just going to give this house to them. But, giving a gift outright to somebody is not the best way to give someone that gift. You can actually set up some designs in your trust to say, okay, when this kid reaches 25, there will be a co-trustee to hold this asset together with him, to monitor him, to make sure that he makes the right decision. And then when he reaches maybe like 35, then he can be independent to manage this asset. So you can build in those structures into your trust to make your asset go the way you want it to go.
Well, I think I knew the person that Paul was referring to earlier, the person who inherits a lot of money when they turn 18 or 19. When I was in law school, the guy who sat next to me in my property class, he had inherited a lot of money at age 18, and he was driving that Porsche, and he was constantly going places. I don't even know if he has any of that money left right now. And to me, I mean, my personal opinion is I think you need to set it up to a point where that your children are going to be responsible with the money. I think that in my mind is crucial, and I don't know what that age is. I don't know if it's 25 or 30. My personal inclination is maybe 30 is a good good amount, but it's all based on a personal opinion.
Well, and let me add to that. One thing I try to be careful about is forcing my opinions on my clients. No one knows a child better than his or her parents, and some people are, I'm told, very mature at 18. I haven't come across them yet, at least when it comes to money. But if someone tells me, well, our kids will be fine at 25, I go with that. But there are people that want to make it 30 and 35, like you said. I try to avoid folks wanting it past 35. There's a tendency to be controlling in some families, and circumstances change. People change over time. And if you're looking at someone 35, that's a bit of a change from being 18. I'd hope that person was a lot more mature by 35 years.
Well, I read a story about Bing Crosby, that Bing Crosby had, maybe you guys know this, he had 4 boys, and in his trust or his will, he had it set up so they would not receive any of the estate until they reached, I think it was 60 or 65 years old.
65.
And only one of the 4 made it to 65, and he only lived 1 year beyond 65. So I think that's an example of maybe excessive estate planning. Just a little bit excessive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be controlling from the grave.
Yes, that's insane. But here, Amy, I got a good question for you. As part of my real estate business, a lot of people come to me, and one of the most frequently asked questions I get is when they get their escrow paperwork, how should I take title? So my question to you is this, is how a person takes title to real property, can it be considered an estate planning tool?
Oh, absolutely. The way you hold title is actually really, really important. And let me just talk about why is it important to hold title correctly. There are 3 things. First of all, if you hold title incorrectly, then the property owner cannot control what's going to happen to the property if something were to happen to him or her. The second one is if the title is held incorrectly, then the heirs or the family members can lose the property to creditors or the IRS or even an ex-spouse. The third thing is if you hold title incorrectly, then the heirs will have to pay capital gain when you sell the property. So it's very important to make sure you hold the property correctly.
Paul?
Well, for purposes of our conversation, we have also been talking about trusts a great deal. So if we're holding title to property that is in the name of a trust, you might have something like John and Jane Doe as trustee of the Doe Family Trust. If we're talking about someone that's not using a trust, however. It's very important for a married couple to take title, either husband and wife as community property or husband and wife as community property with right of survivorship. That establishes that it is indeed a community property asset, that both spouses are able to control that asset. And that's probably the single best piece of advice I can give today, because as Amy said, people who don't do that, who take title improperly, are going to be very surprised when the first spouse dies.
Amy, what's the advantage to holding property, not maybe in a partnership or a family partnership or something like that?
As opposed to a trust, or?
Right.
Okay. So when you hold a title in trust, you can avoid probate, right? And then when you talk about family partnership, that's a different entity structure, like an LLC or whatnot. Those are set up for different reasons. And usually I advise my clients, I would have to look at their assets. Why would they consider setting up a family limited partnership? Or why would they want to consider setting up an LLC? I would look at it and then I would give them some advice.
I see. Paul, do you?
I'd add to that, people that tend to want to form these family limited partnerships or LLCs may have a number of rental properties, and they're looking to protect the assets, give that extra level of protection. That is not the typical client. We mentioned earlier the estate tax exemption being $5,400,000 and change. That is probably more assets than most married couples have. And remember, that $5,400,000 is per person. So a married couple's actually looking at over $10,800,000. That's a lot of money, at least where I come from.
Where I come from, too. We talk on the show a lot about what the median house price in San Diego is. It's like $520,000. And, where I come from, Kansas City, Missouri, $520,000 goes a long, long way. It's a completely different type of house than you get here in San Diego, that's for sure. So when we get back from the break, we'll continue our discussion on estate planning with Amy Shao of ShaoLaw.com. That's HSIAO Law.com. And Paul Campo of AttorneyPaulCampo.com. You are listening to The Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer.
AM 1170 The Answer.
Hey, San Diego, Craig Sewing here. Look, one of the things that nobody likes to hear is that they got bugs in their home. Almost all California homes have some sort of bug or termite problem. It's not a cool thing to have bugs running around your house, so I'm going to help you get rid of them. I want you to connect with Lloyd's Pest Control. These are our good friends of the Craig Sewing Show. They can help you. They've been in business, putting bugs out of business since 1931. They'll do a free inspection for you. If you want to get your biggest investment checked out, make sure there's not bugs or termites, go to LloydPest.com. That's LloydPest.com and get a free inspection of your real estate today.
Did you know that you can make up to 6 times more with vacation rentals than with long-term leasing? By investing in vacation rentals and partnering with Vacasa, you can cash your check while we do all the work. Vacasa is a full-service vacation rental management company. We handle everything from guest marketing and booking to home maintenance and security. If you want more information about Vacasa, please visit online or call 503-305-4520. Again, that's 503-305-4520. Or visit Vacasa.com. That's Vacasa.com. Vacasa, vacation rentals made easy.
Hey, Craig Sewing here. There's no shortage of commercials out there, whether it's TV, radio, even social media. And heck, I even saw an infomercial for solar. You see it everywhere these days. Well, it's because solar is important. It can reduce your electric bill. It's good for the planet. And it's just a great thing to do with your home. It can add value to it. However, there is so much misinformation. Just because somebody is out there advertising does not make them a reliable source. I want to introduce you to my good friends with Baker Electric Solar. The owner, Mike Teresa, I've got to know him really well. This is the only company that I would recommend for you to reduce your electric bill through solar energy. Such a smart move. It's time to do it. Here's how you reach out to them. BakerElectricSolar.com. BakerElectricSolar.com. They will talk to you for free. They'll give you an assessment, and they will help you reduce that electric bill. And again, this is the only group that I trust. BakerElectricSolar.com.
Who would you rather have representing you when buying or selling your home? A real estate agent or a real estate and mortgage broker who is also a licensed California attorney? To sell your home for top dollar, or if you're facing a forced sale due to divorce, probate, short sale, or bankruptcy, you'll need the added value and marketing services of a realtor with the knowledge and experience of a licensed attorney and mortgage broker on your side.
Hi, I'm Michael Gaddis. I give you more, but it doesn't cost you more.
Visit MichaelGaddis.com. That's Michael, Gaddis.com. DRE 0146543 and MLS 28011.
Going through divorce can be very stressful. It is important to know your rights. I'm attorney Ilona Antonian. I'm a certified family law specialist. For over a decade, I've been helping San Diegans win their divorce and custody cases. If you have questions about divorce, property division, child or spousal support, modification of orders, or find yourself in a custody battle, please call us at 619-696-1100. Find us online at expertdivorcelaw.com, where you can download our free divorce, mediation, and recovery guides that I hope you find useful.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of michaelgaddis.com. As you know, I am a top producing real estate broker serving all of San Diego County. We are going to continue our discussion on estate planning with our top estate planning attorneys, Amy Shao of ShaoLaw.com, which is HSIAO Law.com, and Paul Campo of AttorneyPaulCampo.com. During the break, we were talking a little bit about these mills that are out there, these will and trust mills that are out there promoting that they can do, estate planning for as little as $300. That's just $300. Amy, what do you get when you go to one of these places that are claiming to be able to do it for that kind of money?
Well, you essentially get a set of documents, right? And I tell my clients, if all you want is a set of documents and you don't actually want the plan to work, then by all means, go to them, right? But when you come to me, I give you a plan that actually works when you need it the most. See, the problem with these $300 plans is that they might not work, and that you might actually end up being in more distress than you would have.
Well, I'll top that one. We've had cases in my office where people have paid for a $300 trust. Not only did the trust not do what was expected, but it didn't incorporate provisions that are specific to California law. California tends to be an outlier. We regulate and legislate everything. And if our trusts are not drafted properly, there's difficulty enforcing them. And that's when unhappy children or other beneficiaries come to me and learn we're going to have to go to court and we're going to have to spend thousands of dollars that could have been avoided if they had the parents had talked to a competent estate planning attorney while they were alive.
Well, I think it's a cliche, but you get what you pay for, and it happens in every industry. No matter what industry you're in, whether you're in real estate, you're in law, no matter what it is, you always have these bargain basement people that are claiming to be able to do things for absurdly low amounts. And I think you both bring up really good points that, you get what you pay for. You're going to get a standard set of documents, you fill in the blanks, and you roll with it. And the same thing happens for people who try to do bankruptcy on their own. Hey, look here, I'll just get these documents from a paralegal here that's going to just do this. But you know what? There's a whole heck of a lot more to it than just basically getting documents and filling in blanks. And, it's kind of the same thing with me in my legal practice when I was helping people get loan modifications. They'd go to these places that were claiming to be able to do something for, $500. Well, you know what happens? They end up coming to me later, and I have to clean up the mess if it's possible.
Well, I think we can also talk about your real estate practice. People think you just fill in the forms, and you don't do that. You talk to them, you review offers, you're making sure that the individual client is buying the property at the price with the conditions that he or she or they understand. And that's where you bring added value when you're representing people too.
Well, I thank you for that, Paul. And it's true, because people think that in real estate that all you do is, you put it on the MLS and that's it. That's not it. I mean, marketing the property is one aspect, but there's the transactional aspect later on. And I'm telling you, how much negotiation and disputes occur during the actual escrow period. And if you just go to one of these bargain basement things, they're not going to stand up for you, and they don't have the knowledge or expertise to be able to deal with it. And, that's the same thing that goes with you guys. I mean, if you guys think that you guys can go to somebody and pay $300 for a trust, and you think that you're going to get the same level of competency that you would get with one of these two, you need to check yourself in the mirror, because you're not. And you know what the sad thing is? You might not even realize it. It's going to be your beneficiaries that suffer. And they're going to suffer because they're going to have to deal with all this red tape and all the legalities that were not looked into, and you're going to regret it. So by all means, make sure that when you're planning for your estate, that you do so diligently, and you don't just go and try to save a buck, because at the end of the day, it could cost you or your estate a lot of money for doing so. I just went on my little rampage there, but it's true. I'm very passionate about that. I want to talk a little bit now about an article that I found on the internet from the law offices of Robert A. Briskin. He's an estate planning attorney in Los Angeles. And what he did is he put together this guide for estate planning for real estate. And what he says is that estate planning for a client's real estate assets takes into account multiple goals. The first is clients need to plan who will manage their real estate both during the client's lifetime and after the client's death. Amy, how do you feel about that? Is that a true statement?
Oh, absolutely. It's way easier to plan for things while you're well and living than to leave a big mess for your family. So while you're alive, you have this house, and you can think about, who do you want to give this house to? How do you want to give this house, to whoever? And then you can plan accordingly while you're well, and alive. But if you don't do anything about it, then, you're basically leaving it to court, and then your beneficiaries will be arguing over it in court.
Well, I think another thing that it said there is that, that basically you can control who will manage your estate too, and your property. And I think that's a really important point. Paul?
Well, that's what I was going to add to. Yes, it is important. People may come in and say, well, I've got a daughter and a son. So we flipped a coin, and daughter will be the first successor trustee and son will be the second. And then we get to talking, and we find out, well, daughter's kind of what we call a spendthrift. She burns through money, the way some of us burn through Diet Cokes. And it's just not a good idea. So then we find out son's a prudent individual, hardworking insurance man. So maybe that son ought to be the successor trustee. And then we'll find out the daughter is a sweetheart. She's so good with handling people's emotions. Maybe that daughter ought to be doing the advanced healthcare directive to make sure that mom and dad's wishes are respected when they're too ill to take care of themselves.
Well, it's interesting. The people I was telling you about earlier in the show, the woman who was 25 and who was going to take possession of her estate from the trustee, her aunt, who was the trustee, was not the first trustee. Actually, her stepbrother was. And the reason that her aunt became the trustee is because her stepbrother was irresponsible, and it was blatantly irresponsible, and I don't even think he wanted that responsibility from the beginning. At least that's what the aunt said. So she had to step in through a legal process to become the actual trustee. So I think this first point is extremely valid. Amy?
Just want to add to that, when you want to name somebody as a trustee, make sure you have that conversation with them. I have clients who name somebody as their trustee, but they don't know about it. And then, so you make sure, you want to talk to them. Is this a responsibility that you're willing to take on? What does it involve? What does it mean to be a trustee? What does it mean to manage someone else's asset? So make sure you have that conversation, and then also notify them afterwards.
Well, the second thing on this list, it says, second, upon the client's death, how can probate be avoided for real estate? And as I have listed properties that are in probate, and I can tell you, it's a process. What's your feeling on that, Paul?
Well, certainly, we've been talking this show about making sure you have a trust when the assets are appropriate. Real property assets are the classic example. They tend to be illiquid. They're over the $150,000 threshold for mandatory probate. And if you're going to go through a probate of real property, you better be wanting to go that long 12 to 18-month period that Amy described. And you'd also better think about things like, Oh, that mortgage. Who's going to pay that mortgage? I just had the house. I don't have any money. What's going to happen to that house? Odds are it's going to be sold, whether or not that's your desire. There's a lot of imponderables, and that's why it's probably a good idea, if you own California real property, to have a California trust.
Well, I think the third thing here, it says clients may be concerned about creditor protection against potential liabilities generated by the real estate, such as lender claims, hazardous material liabilities, or possible future claims from construction defects. Amy, do you believe that that's the case?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, when you put assets in the trust, you do still have to pay those debts. However, you could pre-plan it and then to avoid that.
Well, when we get back from break, we'll continue our discussion on estate planning with Amy Shao of ShaoLaw.com. That's HSIAO Law.com. And Paul Campo of AttorneyPaulCampo.com. You are listening to The Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.
AM 1170, TheAnswer.com. Hear us anywhere in San Diego and the world. AM 1170, The Answer.
What if you could safely grow your retirement account with a reasonable rate of return with no risk of principal? Hi, this is Dave Harris with Wealth Preservation, specializing in retirement income and insurance planning. There's nothing I enjoy more than helping San Diegans protect and grow their retirement savings. For over 4 decades, we have helped families achieve financial success. If you need help with your retirement planning, please visit me online or call me today. My number is 800-313-PLAN or visit me online at wealthpreservationllc.com.
Hi, this is John Beaudry, the landscape contractor. There's nothing I enjoy more than helping San Diegans create gardens where they can spend time outdoors in our fantastic weather and save money on their water bills. I've helped hundreds of people create outdoor spaces where they can literally live outdoors. If you need help with your landscape, I'll be happy to discuss it with you for free. No strings attached, just great advice. My number is 619-929-9140 or visit me online at beaudrydesign.com. That's BEAUDRY design.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
Who would you rather have representing you when buying or selling your home? A real estate agent or a real estate and mortgage broker who is also a licensed California attorney? To sell your home for top dollar, or if you're facing a forced sale due to divorce, probate, short sale, or bankruptcy, you'll need the added value and marketing services of a realtor with the knowledge and experience of a licensed attorney and mortgage broker on your side.
Hi, I'm Michael Gaddis. I give you more, but it doesn't cost you more.
Visit MichaelGaddis.com. That's Michael, Gaddis.com. DRE 0146543 and MLS 28001.
Your home should be a place that you love coming to. Hi, I'm Nikki Klug, interior designer, and there is nothing I enjoy more than helping San Diegans live in homes that they fall madly in love with. I've helped hundreds of homeowners experience a sense of luxury, rejuvenation, and inspiration in their everyday lives. If you need help creating a home that you love, please visit me online at NikkiKlugDesign.com or call me at 619-948-7173.
AM 1170, The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of MichaelGaddis.com. I am a top producing real estate broker serving all of San Diego County. We're going to continue our discussion on estate planning with Amy Shao of ShaoLaw.com. That's HSIAO Law.com. And Paul Campo of AttorneyPaulCampo.com. So during the break, we were talking a little bit about incapacity, about what happens when somebody becomes incapacitated and is unable to basically run their estate. Amy, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So there are 3 very important documents that a person should have. First one is the Advanced Healthcare Directive, which basically says if something were to happen to them, they do not want to be unnecessarily prolong their life. In other words, they do not want to be in a vegetative state. So if you don't write that down under California law, by law, the physicians, the doctors have to put you on that, have to make you in vegetative state, basically. The second document is the power of attorney. So anybody over 18 should really have a power of attorney in place so that in case something were to happen to them, at least another person who they named as the power of attorney can step in and make the legal decisions for them. When we talk about selling houses, right? In case something were to happen to the house owner or the property owner, then all of a sudden he doesn't have that equal capacity to sell the house or to refinance the house. So you really want to have that power of attorney in place. Now, talk about power of attorney, though. A lot of parents, if you have like 3 kids or 2 kids, you think, okay, great, I'm going to list the 2 kids as the joint power of attorney. Not knowing that, if you don't specify the joint power of attorney, if they don't act together or if they have inconsistent opinions or if one person, the brother can sign but the sister cannot sign, then that designation would still be ineffective. So you really want to talk to an attorney about this.
One of the things I'd like to add, because I think Amy's done a great summary, on those advanced healthcare directives, that's a special term we use in California. Many of you have probably heard the term living will, and you've probably also heard a durable power of attorney for healthcare. Those terms were obsolete about 10, 12 years ago in our state. The one document I mentioned does allow you not only to pre-plan what's going to happen as far as your health care, but it also allows you to say, well, maybe I want to give some organs when I've passed away. Maybe I want to designate a primary care physician because that person's going to decide when I am incapacitated. Or even more important, which one of my loved ones is going to make those difficult health care decisions? Some children, if it's a parent-child situation, are just not able to pull the proverbial plug. That is a very important conversation to have. Families hate to do this because it makes one face mortality, but you just can't avoid it because you're the one that's going to be on that table. You're the one that really doesn't want those feeding tubes, really doesn't want those oxygen tubes. But if you don't explain it to your family member, to the person who's your agent under your advanced healthcare directive, you may get those devices and find that your quality of life is maintained at an unacceptable level.
Well, I think that's really important. It sounds like there's a couple things here, a couple issues that are really at play. One is what to do with yourself when you're incapacitated, and 2 is you need someone to take care of your estate if that happens, whether it's a permanent or temporary thing. You really need to have somebody. And I think the big issue that both of you have brought up is who's going to be the person that you choose? I mean, I know a lot of people have multiple children and they think, well, I really can't choose between them. But from what Amy was saying, it really is important because what if you have a disagreement and you appoint 2 people and then all of a sudden there's a conflict between them? What happens?
Well, that's a good point. And we're lucky in California, you may not have co-agents under an advanced healthcare directive. If you think about it, who's going to be following the directive? It's going to be physicians, healthcare professionals, and hospital personnel. They don't have the time or, frankly, the patience to deal with siblings, for example, that are fighting. Mom wants this. No, mom doesn't want that. You rank those agents in order, and you should have more than one. I recommend 3 to my clients. And those are the people that are going to make the decision. Obviously, if you're married, you want your spouse first. And then you'd better be talking to those kids. Make sure the kid that you name number 2 is fully conversant with what you want to happen. It's not about the child, folks. It's about you. And be honest with your lawyer, because that's the only way we can advise you.
Amy?
Yes, Paul raised a really good point about the Advanced Healthcare Directive. And I'd like to add a couple points about the power of attorney. Actually, just last week, we had a case in court where, brother and sister disagree in the power of attorney, and the power of the brother didn't want to sign. And so what happened in that case is we would have to start a conservatorship proceeding for the family. And, as Paul mentioned, conservatorship proceeding is very time consuming. It's like a living probate. Just to have the case on calendar takes about 3 to 4 months just to get it on calendar. While your mom or, the incapacitated family member is lying in bed in the hospital.
Wow, that is, I mean, no one likes to think about this type of thing, right? No, as Paul pointed out, you have to deal with your own mortality, but I think it's really responsible of yourself to really look in the mirror and think, what do I want to happen to me, and who do I want in charge if it does happen, and to make sure, as Paul pointed out, that you have a real sit-down conversation with people and somehow make it very clear as to what your desires are, because you're right. Children's emotions will definitely get in the way of what you really want, and that's why you have to have somebody appointed that really has your best interest at mind.
I think a good point to make here is that many people don't have children, and many people, if they have children, don't think they should be making financial or healthcare decisions. California is fortunate. We license people that are known as private professional fiduciaries. These are individuals that have been vetted by the state of California. They have bonded insurance. They can manage your property if you don't have anyone that you choose to list from among family and friends, and they can make those healthcare decisions for you. I use them in my practice area because I frequently have older Americans that have perhaps outlived spouses and children, never had children, their siblings have passed on, and it is a difficult decision for them to make. But it is important to find someone. If you don't have family and friends, there are options. There are private professional fiduciaries, and a competent estate planning attorney can discuss this with you and can arrange for you to interview these people.
Well, you bring up something that I think is very interesting, because I had a client in my office not too long ago. She wanted to sell a property, and she started talking about her trust. And she told me that she has 6 children, and I asked her who her trustee was, and she says, not my children. And I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, look, I love my children, and they're the most precious things to me in the world, but I know my children. And she says, there is no way that I would put any of this responsibility into any one of them. She goes, it would create inter-family fights. They would not abide by what I want. They would let their own emotions get in the way. And it was so funny because she literally went on for like 20 minutes on, her children and how they were not competent to really, do. And so I think your point is really valid, Paul, that having maybe an independent third party that, has access to your desires in writing and they know exactly what you want goes a very long way.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to add a quick point. Everybody's getting along fine when there's no disputes, right? But when the mom and dad dies and leaving a big, huge inheritance for the kids, now they want to argue about it, right? And so the private fiduciaries that Paul mentioned is really good in a sense that they're bound by fiduciary duties. So they have to act in according to the parents' wishes.
Well, and that's interesting because you're right. During lifetime, people usually get along just great. And in my realm, I always get real estate related issues about people who want to sell properties, and they're talking about, well, my brother, we don't talk anymore since my mother. And all of a sudden afterwards, it's a free for all, it seems like. And I think that that's sad, but I think it's humanity. And I think that it's important for whoever's, planning their estate to realize that, what, I know you love your children, they seem to love each other, but money and property, it gets in the way a lot of times, and that's why I think it's very important, as you mentioned, to have maybe an independent person be your trustee. So one more thing I want to talk about here before we go, because in radio land, time goes really, really fast, and I have a stack of questions that I have not been able to get to, but I want to ask one last question before we exit today, and that has to do with a qualified personal residence trust. What is it, and is it valuable? Paul.
QPERTs, or what you described as a qualified personal residence trust, offer certain tax advantages. The issue, however, is those tax advantages may no longer be relevant given our current personal estate tax exemption. The concept is a good one. You put your property, your home, into a trust, and you seek to have it depreciated over a fixed period of time. You may not need that with our current estate tax exemption. I think a nice idea, however, is to consider whether you want to put some of your property into an irrevocable trust, one that cannot be changed, one that will allow an individual to have confidence that that trustee is going to make the best financial decisions. I see these being useful when people are honest with themselves. They decide that maybe it's time the revocable trust become irrevocable. They see they're slipping. Slipping is a nice way of saying they're perhaps not as mentally acute. But you can imagine that's something we all worry about. We're not doing so well. Maybe it's time to stop making the changes and keep our trust the way it is.
Well, just as you mentioned that or answered that question, I had about 20 more discussion points I'd like to talk about. Unfortunately, we're out of time today. So I want to thank my guests today, Paul Campo of attorneypaulcampo.com and Amy Shao of shaolaw.com, HSIAOlaw.com. If you're looking for estate planning, you could do a lot worse than calling these two. These two are two of the top estate planning attorneys in San Diego County. So that does it for today. I want to thank you all for listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. discussing anything and everything related to real estate. If you want to contact me with questions or topics for the show, please feel free to email me at michael@michaelgaddis.com or contact me via Twitter at MGJDRealty. Again, you have been listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. Good night, San Diego.